Okay, so first we're going to talk about pre-shooting setup. So before you run out and put sunglasses on your dog and play paparazzi, we have to get you set up with the right settings. First, turn off live photo. Live photo mode takes a 1.5-second video with audio before and after tapping the shutter button. So you end up with 3 seconds of live photo that consists of maybe one good frame and another 3 seconds of awkward smiling or blurry movement. And if you want to show off your photos, you're likely going to be putting them on social media or a website or printing them out. And live photo is going to be compressed into a single image anyway. Now, there is a great use for live photo mode to get a beautiful long exposure shot, but I'll be covering that later in this class. But for now, we won't need it because live photos take up more storage space on your phone. The reason is because they're not just a single photo. They're technically 45 images compiled into one short video. So let's turn it off because we're not going to need it. Just go to the camera and tap this little dotted circle so that it's grayed out with a little slash through it. Next, turn on HDR. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range, and it's just a fancy word for capturing multiple exposures in the same shot. I could get into HDR for a while, but all you really need to know for shooting HDR on your phone is that it takes a very bright image to properly expose for the shadows, a neutral image to expose for the midtones, and a dark image to properly expose for the highlights. And it combines all of them into one balanced photo with well-lit highlights and well-lit shadows. This is very helpful for photo editing later and keeping you from blowing out parts of your image with too much light. To turn it on, just go to the settings, navigate to camera, and turn on Smart HDR at the bottom. Next, turn on the grid. The grid is very helpful for showing rule of thirds, which I'll be covering in a later lesson, as well as how to use it properly. The grid is also really helpful for getting a level frame with the horizon. To turn it on, just go to the settings, navigate to camera, and turn on the grid. Okay, next we have to go over focus tapping, exposure control, and lock focus. These are really important features that are pretty simple within the iPhone camera app, but a lot of people don't know that they're there or how to utilize them like they should. First, focus tapping. When an object is in focus, that means it's within the depth of field. And the depth of field is another photography term for the range of sharpness within an image. You can have a large depth of field where everything is in focus, or you can have a small depth of field where one subject is in focus and the background is blurry, much like professional digital cameras nowadays. Since the iPhone is completely touchscreen, Apple has integrated an autofocus, which works fantastically for almost any shot. But if you're shooting macro, which is close up, you may need to change your focus. Start by putting the camera up close to an object in your nearby surroundings. You can now tap on the screen in the background to focus on the back of the image, or you can tap on the subject in the foreground that's closer to the camera to put focus back on the subject. Next, exposure control. Once you've set your focus on an object in the frame, you can now slide your finger up or down on the screen to lighten or darken your image. The iPhone also has an auto exposure feature that automatically sets the proper exposure for whatever object you tap to focus. If you want to lock focus, Apple has also integrated a feature to lock the focus on whatever object that you select, no matter if you change the camera position. Enable this by tapping and holding your finger on the subject of your choosing, and a yellow box will appear on the screen that says AEAF Lock, which stands for Auto Exposure and Autofocus Lock. Also, quick tip, never use digital zoom. This is when you use 2 fingers to zoom in, and it greatly decreases the resolution of your image. This turns an HD photo into a blurry mess. And if you need to get a better shot, just simply walk closer to the subject, or if you have one of the newer iPhones with multiple lenses on it, like this one, there's a function to change to a longer lens by clicking on the number 2 option in photo mode. Let's go over how to optimize pano mode. Panoramic mode is where your phone takes a series of pictures from left to right or right to left, and it automatically stitches them together to create a 180-degree image of your surroundings. This often looks far too wide and very annoying to post on social media. But there's a trick to using it to create a really stylish wide-angle shot that looks as though you bought a special lens for your phone. Now, if you have one of the newer iPhones with 3 different lenses on it, you can simply open the camera, go to photo mode, and tap the 0.5 button to get a wide angle. But in case you don't have this option, here's a cool trick. Simply open the camera, swipe to slide over to pano mode, tap the shutter, which is the white button, and slide across your subject while keeping your phone as level as possible. And also be sure to go slowly because your camera has to set a new exposure for each picture it takes to make up the full panoramic image. And then tap the white button again to stop wherever you want. If done right, you'll end up with a very GoPro wide-angle style image that can look very professional. This feature can also be used vertically. Just simply turn your phone on its side and repeat the process to take an extra tall wide-angle photo. Keep in mind that the closer you stand to your subject, the better this is going to look. If the base of your subject fills the frame when you start it, it's usually going to end up looking really nice. I use this all the time whenever I photograph architecture.